with their
Thank
rotary
you
phone.
all for being here this evening. I'm Nola Wellman. I'm the interim superintendent. I'm here and then I'm gone. It's what happens, but I'm delighted to be able to be here with you this evening. We have a very full agenda. This is a meeting that has been delayed through the fall because we're in leadership transition, first and foremost, and secondly, because we wanted to put this structure into place. And we'll talk a little bit later about how the committee was formed, but I really appreciate those of you that are here as voting members of this, because many decisions have to be made by the end of the school year to make some recommendations to our board. As you will hear this evening, we'll talk about the charge. This is an advisory committee. This committee will do a lot of work that the Board of Trustees does not have the time to do. They could do it, but they really want your input, your thoughts, and the time that you will put in, and I know that they appreciate that. I would like to introduce some of our board members this evening. Ms. Carrie Coyle, who's the president, Mary Jane Hetrick, who is the vice president. We have Marissa Grijalva, who's on board, Joanna Day. That's here. We posted so that we would be in compliance of the quorum, so that as many board members as wanted to attend could. This, however, is an administrative meeting, and so that's how we will lead it. They are observers this evening, but we sure appreciate, first of all, what you've done in terms of selection of alum finalists. Spent many, many hours doing that. And secondly, just being here to hear the voices of our community. Thank you very much. So I welcome you this evening, and I think that what's important is that we start and ground ourselves into our mission and our vision. And so when you look at that, it's a very powerful vision. We inspire and equip students to be lifelong learners and positive contributors to the world. That's our vision. That's what this school district believes in. And our mission in doing that is partnering. We partner with students, parents, and community to provide a personal and exceptional education for every student. When you think about that, I would like for you to keep that in your mind as you think about the facilities, because some of you work in these facilities, and you think about this vision. What does it mean for the future of our students to have facilities that help meet that vision? I'm going to ask you right off the bat to talk in your group for about 30 seconds, about maybe a minute, how about that, about what it means to have this vision as you think about facilities and planning for facilities. Take a minute.
Work is such a strong word. There, thank you.
I think it's giving the latest terminology.
Well, what I see is some people
way of technology. Is it latest technology? Yeah.
For me, it's also not being impacted, having the space that they need to give the attention that they need, not be one of the
trade students in 20 areas for jobs and staff.
not a huge city job.
Good question. Right. That's why this facility has to be built.
Sure about this,
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I'm already hearing some very for having futuristic facilities. Because if we're going to inspire and we're going to equip students, that it's important that we have facilities that help them, in fact, encourage them to do so, to be positive contributors to the world. And we want to do that within a community that supports them. So thank you for thinking about this in the context of our facilities. I'm going to ask you now to introduce yourselves, but as you introduce yourselves, tell your name, and if you don't mind standing up, I know it's a little bit clunky in here, but still everybody can see who's talking. And you and we have a long time together. Between now and the end of the school year, we've committed to 8 meetings. And that is a long time. I'd sure like for all of you to get to know each other, at least on a first name basis. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, the role you're playing, parent, maybe staff member, maybe both, maybe foundation member, things that you do that connect you to the school district. And then thirdly, I want you to give one word, not a phrase, one word that to you describes Dripping Springs ISD. And normally I start in the front, but I'm going to start with Mark Cousins and do that table. Here, Mark, I'm going to come back so you have the microphone.
I'm loud. I don't need that, I promise. Mark Cousins, I'm here as a parent. I have a daughter in the 11th grade. My wife used to be the principal and actually was the principal when this building opened. And excellent is the word I would use to describe this school district.
Oh, I get to use the mic. I'm John Adams. I'm delighted to say I am not here as a parent. That's all over with. They're gone. I served on this committee 15 or 16 years ago, so I've been invested a long time. My retirement job is a teacher now, so I'm on staff. And that was an eye-opener. So I like to think that the district is innovative.
My name is Jenna Walker. I'm new to the community. This is my second year. So I teach special education here at the high school, and I would say growing.
I'm Bill Noble. I've had 4 kids in the school district. One is a junior at Baylor, our only girl. And then we have a senior at the high school, a 7th grader at the Sycamore Springs Middle School, and then I have a kindergartner. Oh, he's clapping over there for me. Kindergartner at Sycamore Springs Elementary School, who will be in the district for the next 13 years.
You got your word?
One word?
Oh, excellence as well.
Hello, my name is Ron Meyer, and I'm a parent, and I have a middle schooler in the 7th grade at the Sycamore Springs. And I guess my one word is we moved here about 2 years ago, and we came from a school district where it was easy to get to all the schools. Here I do a lot of driving, so I'd say spread out.
I'm Cheyenne Harper. I'm a 5th grade teacher at DSC, and I also went to elementary and middle school here in the district when it was much smaller. And my one word would be inspiring.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Henry. I also teach at DSC. I teach kindergarten. And I would say my one word would probably be positive. Just the vibe around here. I've taught at various other districts around the state, and this is just a very positive place to be.
Hi there, I'm Stephanie Rodriguez. I have kiddos at DSMS in 8th grade in the special ed department. I have 2 kiddos at Walnut. I am a Walnut parent representative, and my one word would be welcoming. Hi, my name is Carrie Potter. I am a teacher representative from Walnut Springs, but I also teach at Dripping Springs, and I have 2 high schoolers here in the district. My one word for the district is also growing.
Hello, my name is Carrie Benton. I am secretary at DSE. So I'm a staff member. I'm also a parent. I have 3 kids at Sycamore Springs Elementary. I have twins in 3rd and a 4th grader, so I'm going to be here for a while. My word is strong.
My name is Amy Larson. I've lived here in Dripping for 16 years. I teach at Rooster Springs, taught first grade, and now I teach pre-K, so the littles. I would say, well, I do have a daughter in high school. Just came back from state jams, you know, did really good. And then I have a 7th grader at Sycamore Springs Middle School. And so we've been through lots of transitions. So I'm going to say transitional.
You see me every day. My name is Lauren Danaher. I am a teacher at Rooster. I teach 2nd grade. I have a 7th grader at Sycamore Springs and a 1st grader at Rooster with me. So I'd say my one word to describe Dripping is community.
I'm Nicole McGilvery. I'm a teacher at Sycamore Middle School and a parent of a 10th grader at the high school, and my word is passionate.
I'm Katie Iberg, and I am a teacher at the high school in the English department, and I'm kind of a new, old hire. I was here for 3 years and then left, and then I've now since returned. And my one word for this district would be innovative.
Hi, I am Karen Tiller. I am a librarian at Fly here at the high school. I have 2 kids in the district. I have an 11th grader and I have an 8th grader at Dripping Springs Middle School. My one word for the district would be forward thinking.
Misty Maxwell. I'm the fly at Sycamore Middle School. I also have 2 children in the district, one at Sycamore Middle in 7th grade and a high schooler who's a sophomore. And my word would be visionary.
I'm Natalie Lyle. I'm a 3rd grade teacher and also a parent. My daughter's in 6th grade at Sycamore Springs Middle School. And my one word would be innovative.
My name is Garrett Crum. I'm a parent, 3 kids in the district. Well, 2 kids in school right now, a 3rd grader and a 1st grader at Sycamore Springs Elementary, and a 2-year-old who at recent math was class of 2035. And my word is individualized. I've been amazed at how, it's not really part of the mission, but how the goal of the schools is to provide education on an individual, personalized, maybe a good word too, on an individual basis, and we've experienced that firsthand, and so that's my word. Yeah. Oh, sorry, you're doing the same thing.
Gabe Watson. I work at Walnut Springs. I'm a teacher there. My word, I also have 2 daughters. They both graduated from Dripping. Good job, everybody. And my word would be caring.
I'm Dan Neal. I'm the principal at Sycamore Springs Middle School. I'm also a parent. I have a son who's in 9th grade, and I also have 2 daughters who graduated from Dripping Springs High School. My one word is going to be opportunity.
Good evening, I'm Kristen Ray. I'm the principal at Sycamore Springs Elementary. Woo! And I'm so glad to be here. Thank you to Dr. Wellman for all her work and preparation for this evening. But I am the principal. I'm not a parent here, thank goodness. Like him, I've sent all 3 children away, so it's a celebration. And my word is definitely special.
Hi, Angela Gomez. I'm principal here at the high school, also a parent of 2 kids who go to DSE, a pre-K, and a 1st grader. Oh, my word is collaborative.
Hello, my name is Scott Roulette. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations. New to the district, I'm glad to be here. Like Ms. Ray, my kids are gone, and I'm grateful for that. We've done our time. My one word, my first word that came to my mind is excellence, and that's what I think of when I think of Dripping Springs. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Good evening, I'm Jennifer Minnick. I am a facility use coordinator here at the district for the past 7 years, and both of my children grew up in this district. And my one word would be passionate.
Hello, Clint Pruitt, Director of Facilities and Construction, and my one one word I think would be growth, because that can apply to so many things. It can apply to education, it can apply to professionally, and also applies to this school district.
Hi, I'm Cindy Wade, Director of Technology. I've been in the district, this is my 16th year. And for me, I think the word is partnership.
My name is John Crowley, and my one word is allergens. I run the John Nutrition Bar, I'm a dietitian. I think progressive would be the word I would use after allergens.
Good evening, I'm Pam Swanks, I'm the Transportation Director. I too have two children that both grew up in Dripping Springs and graduated. And for me, Dripping Springs means community.
Good evening, my name is Jeff Martello, the Finance Director of the Business Office. And I would say my one word would probably be jealous with getting to approve or see all the purchases that we do in the district and the great opportunities that the kids have in Dripping.
Okay, we need to go here. Don't we? We want to go here and then there.
Hi, I'm Michael Garza. I'm here as a parent. I've got one left in the district as a junior. I'm a de facto staff member. My fiance is the nurse at Walnut, and she's got a senior and freshman still in the district. I said my one word is blessed.
Natalie Farmer, I'm assistant principal here at Dripping Springs High School, and my one word would be unique. I'm Tammy Ballard, assistant principal at Sycamore Elementary. I had two children that have gone through the district, and my one word would be community.
Hello, my name is Eric Newstrom. I have a first grader at Sycamore Springs Elementary. I go with Bogan.
Good evening, I'm Amanda Miyamoto. I'm the DSISD Council of PTA's president. I also have two girls in the district, a 10th grader here at the high school and a 6th grader at Sycamore Middle School. And I would say my one word is community.
Good evening, I'm John Pacheco. My wife and I have lived out here for 25 years. We've seen a lot of changes. When I retired about 3-4 years ago, I took over the local paper, the Dripping Springs Century News. I would have to say the one word is community, not only some of the interns and students that we've hired in different businesses over the years, but also on the warm welcome that you give us veterans on Veterans Days and other Memorial Day like activities. Thank you.
Howdy, my name is Melissa Tyree, and I have two daughters in the district, a 9th grade high school and 7th grader at Sycamore Middle School. And I was going to say caring, but he's just done with that.
Hi, Derek Woods, I'm a staff member here at the high school, no kids. My one word will sound more negative than I mean it, but demanding.
Well, I'm Talia Thomas. I have 3 kids in the district, 2 is already passed. It's 2015 and 2016, but 2016 and I have a Sycamore Springs 7th grader. I am here as a parent and a teacher, taxpayer, and also my word is community.
I'm Miles Matthews. My wife and I have lived here in the district for 15 years. My wife Paula teaches at Sycamore Springs and has for 15 years, and the one word I would have is transforming.
Good evening, I'm Mallory Shackelford. I'm the instructional facilitator at Dripping Springs Middle School. I have 2 children in the district. They're both very little. I'll be here for a while, and my word is student-centered.
Hi, I'm Carrie Golke. I am a teacher over at Dripping Springs Middle School. I've taught there for about 12 years. I just think the community is fantastic. I think our students are fantastic, so I would go with the word community.
Hi, my name is Susie Robbins, and I'm a parent of a junior here at the high school and an 8th grader at Sycamore Springs Middle School, and my one word would be encourage.
I'm Dustin Litier, here as a parent. I have 2 children in Sycamore, one in the 1st grade, one in the 2nd grade. I would say my word would be desirable.
Hi, I'm Kent Willis. I've lived here for 16 and a half years. I'm the father of 2 graduates of Dripping Springs High School. I've got a freshman currently at Dripping Springs High School. I have a wife who's a graduate of Dripping Springs School.
Don't make her.
There's the admin building, and I won't say anything more than that. I would say that my one word is challenging.
I'm Jim Misco. We have 2 boys, a senior and a freshman, and they both still seem small to me. And we've lived out here for 30 years. And the word that I would use is respect. Respect that I've seen in the schools for each other, and the community has shown us, and communities past ours have for us.
Hello, I'm Samantha Bethany. I have 2 boys at Brewster Springs Elementary, 2nd grade and pre-K, so the class of 2023 and 2030. And my word is evolving.
Hi, I'm Colette Cram, and I'm a parent of 2 children in the district. Marin, wonderful teacher, Mrs. Harbour is here, yay. And then I also have a 7th grader at Dripping Middle School, and my word would be growing.
Hi, I'm Kristen Hearn. I have 1 that graduated last year, and I have 2, a sophomore at the high school and an 8th grader. And great experiences at the school level, I will say, but my one word is directed at the Board of Trustees and the administration, and that's irresponsible. Hope you can approve on that.
My name is Ashley Wittenberger, and I'm a taxpayer and a community member. And lived in Dripping Springs for, I can't remember now, 15 or 17 years, and grew up in Hays County. My one word, I guess, would be a hyphenated word, well represented. It seems that DSISD employees are well represented in this room tonight, so thanks for coming.
I would like to give you my word after being here for 4 months, and that is commitment. I see a lot of people very committed to what happens here in the district, and I'm very proud to have had the time and the ability to be here, so thank you.
Thank you to everyone, and let's get busy. You should have, if you're a committee member, a green folder. If you do not have one, please raise your hand, and I will hand one to you. There are extra agendas, but the committee members should have the green folders. Thank you. And that inside that is the agenda. As you can see, it's going to be full tonight, and so you can follow along with what we have planned for the evening. I want to talk for a minute about the objectives for this meeting. This is a transition time. We have a new superintendent that will be coming on board should the board vote for him on November 21st. So right now we have a lone finalist candidate, and with that we will have me at this meeting and potentially a new superintendent at the next meeting. This meeting then will be to introduce the committee members to each other and to outline our charge, to talk about the process and the timeline that you're facing for your work. We're going to spend some time on committee function, how you function and work together, some time doing that, and providing some background information to facilitate the work of the committee. So those are our objectives. We're going to start just with last year's long-range facility plan meeting review. There were 3 meetings, and frankly, I wasn't here. Mr. Gillette was only here for one of them, but luckily Mr. Pruitt was here, so I'm going to let you go through the meetings briefly from last year.
Okay, again, my name is Clint Pruitt, Director of Facilities and Construction, and I just want to again thank everyone for volunteering their time for this important effort. I'm going to cover a couple of things. I'm going to do this review of the long-range facility planning committee 3 meetings that we had last year, and then I'm going to go into just a brief 2018 bond review. As Dr. Roman referred to, we had 3 meetings last year starting in November. And at that first meeting, it was somewhat similar to some of the ground we covered tonight. At each of the 3 meetings, we did a brief 2018 bond recap and progress update. And then went through the committee's purpose, in charge, covered the district's vision, mission, and strategic plan. And then there's, I think, probably about half of this committee was also at those meetings. Some of you probably remember in the timeline discussion, Dr. Gehring took pieces of paper up in the lecture hall and kind of laid them out, starting with the bond election in May of 2018 through 2024, 2025, kind of laid out, where the work of the committee and that transitioning into a steering committee, where we would potentially run out of capacity with the projects that were included in the 2018 bond, and when we might be looking at future bonds. So that kind of wrapped up that first meeting in November. We met again in February, and that meeting was in this same room and was primarily focused to talk about high school size, high school options. Dr. Gehring gave a presentation that included some research, different options that, from a comprehensive high school like we have here. They talked about academies, 9th grade centers, magnet schools, and some other options that a growing district faces when they're making the decision to either stay in one high school or go beyond that. And then, in addition to that, we had several presentations from 5 or 6 different districts. We had a few people that were here in person. Then we also had a couple of districts from the Dallas area that Skyped in. We had Allen, which most of you probably know, Allen High School, including their freshman centers, close to 7,000 students with one high school. And then on the other end of that, you got Frisco, who's got 10 high schools with an average enrollment of around 2,000 per high school. And we also heard from Hayes, who just this year, so at that time they were planning for and constructing their 3rd high school, which opened this year. And then Bernie, another area district that opened a 2nd high school several years ago now. But we heard from those different districts, and they kind of talked through their experiences through, there was kind of a wide range of the different models, from a very large single high school to a Frisco with 10 high schools. And then the final meeting in May of last school year, we spent the majority of that meeting, we had gotten a district had gotten a demographic update from population and survey analyst, our demographer. They had provided that to the district in March, and so we had Dr. Pat Gussman here from PASA. She went through the demographic report with the committee, and then at the end of that meeting, we kind of went back and revisited the committee timeline in light of the demographics, because demographics, is going to be one of the primary drivers to the work of this committee. And Mr. Gillette is going to provide an overview of that demographic report a little bit later. He's actually, I think, on deck after me. And with that, I'm going to move into the 2018 bond review. Again, this is just a brief overview. This just shows all the projects that were included in the 2018 bond. The 4 projects at the top were those that were completed this past summer. Dripping Springs Elementary renovations. And I'm going to show a few pictures after we go through this slide. But renovations at Dripping Springs Elementary, pretty substantial renovations there. Some major HVAC work on the central plant, painting the entire interior of the building, new metal panels to give the outside of the building a bit of a facelift. and then completely renovating all of the restrooms and plumbing inside the building. Along with that project, we paired the Rooster Springs and Dripping Springs Elementary projects together. The scope of the Rooster Springs was much smaller, primarily painting the interior of the building, some carpet in the administration area, and a few other small items. The athletic improvements, those are the turf and track replacements, Dripping Springs Middle School, Dripping Springs High School track field, and then also Tiger Stadium, so 3 turf fields and then the 2 tracks were done there. And then at the same time we were doing renovations at Dripping Springs Elementary. Most of that furniture in that school was very old, and so we got a much needed furniture replacement at the same time. Moving into the projects that are kind of either in construction or in design. If you've been around the high school, if you just look out the window, you see the construction project that's ongoing here. That will expand the capacity of this building to 2,500. We're also adding a new flex gym at the front, just off the front corner of the building. What would be the northeast corner, northeast corner of the building as you come in, and then at the very back of the property, an ag barn expansion and then a new ag barn or a new ag classroom. You see some kind of over aerial pictures and then a picture of that classroom a little later. Walnut Springs Elementary relocation to the Dripping Springs Middle School site is in design. I didn't mention on the high school, that will finish up August of 2020 and be ready for next school year. Walnut Springs Elementary relocation is in design. Construction set to start late spring and be finished in the summer of 21 to open in August of 21. Similarly with elementary school number 5 out of Garden Hill is in design currently. Start construction late spring and finish up in the summer of 2021. At the same time that we're doing the Walnut Springs Elementary relocation project, there's some renovations that will be done at Dripping Springs Middle School. That will actually, those renovations will affect the middle school during the summer, so we'll get in the school this summer, starting this summer of this year, and then again next summer to complete those renovations. That includes some assessment items, air conditioning controls, kind of like some behind the wall, above the ceiling type stuff, but then also creating some collaborative spaces within the building. Next, the transportation site, the building improvements, that's also in design right now. Construction, since that's it, it will impact their operation, but we can actually do that construction, whereas it's a little more difficult with the school and transportation. We'll start that construction early next year, and the transportation department will have to work around them, and they'll work around the construction activity. But that project will take roughly 6 months, and it'll wrap up summer of 2020 as well. And then the only of those construction projects, the only one that's not in design or construction or completed at this point is the Dripping Springs Administration relocation. Once the new Walnut would be finished, then we'd be working on the design of that 2020, 2021, and then construction would take place after Walnut had moved, and then that would finish up spring of 2022. And then along with that, we've got technology upgrades that are ongoing, and then land procurement, which we've got one piece of property that's under contract, the Headwaters, which I'm sure most people have heard about. We're in the feasibility study portion of that in terms of the land procurement. That land procurement will continue to look at future sites for future schools, and future needs. With that, I'm going to give just a few pictures. This is an aerial overview from several weeks ago. They've moved beyond that. It just kind of shows that courtyard area where the main high school addition is going, literally just right outside these walls. And then On the left there, they actually this week started standing up the structural steel, so it'll really start to take shape now that that steel's going up. The flex gym that I referred to earlier, that foundation work is ongoing. Then there on the left-hand side, the ag barn expansion, you can see, if I can make it work. This is where the expansion for the ag barn is going. And then this is the new ag classroom, which is right here in this part of the existing ag barn. And that work is finishing up now, and hopefully able to use that output tomorrow. So that should be ready for student use right after Thanksgiving. Dripping Springs Elementary renovations, as you can see, the large restrooms completely remodeled in those. There's just a couple of examples of the work that was done there. But then brand new gym floors, and then you can see the paint, new paint throughout the building. There's the new furniture there on the left-hand side, new classroom furniture. And then this is right there as you walk in the main entrance, some new kind of foyer reception area furniture. And then Brewster Springs Elementary, new paint throughout the building. You can see the hallways there. It's not as exciting as flash, but the new coat of paint goes a long way. In school, it's just reached 10 years. And then the carpeting in the main administration area had gotten really worn and faded, so that, again, not very exciting, but if you worked in that area every day, having that new carpet is a welcome sight. The turf and track replacements, Tiger Stadium there on the left, obviously, and then on the right is the middle school and the track field here at the high school. Basically got similar treatment, but got brand new track surface, new turf surfaces there, all three fields. In addition to the turf surfaces, all three of those fields got a shop pad underlayment, which is helpful for, it helps to maintain the integrity of the turf system over the life of the turf system, keeps it softer, helps to prevent impact injuries, concussions, and that type of thing. And I think that is the last of the numbers.
Clint?
Yes.
Just two small questions.
Sure.
The technology upgrade, I think that was like $7.5 million. And I was wondering, in the bond, I was wondering if, is there going to be a deadline at some point, like when they're supposed to be completed? Because it just said ongoing.
I have Cindy, our technology director, address that.
So we've made a really concerted effort to make sure we're getting the maximum life out of all of our products, and so we've intentionally staggered the projects so that they do get that maximum use out of the electronics. So we've hit the really important things first, like Dripping Springs Elementary, Brewster Springs Elementary, AV upgrade, because those were very, very old projection systems, so we've hit those. The legacy intercom system out of Brewster Springs Elementary, but the bigger items are going to be later, probably around this coming summer is when those will really hit, because again, we want to get the maximum life out of those products. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I imagine technology might be part of what we wind up looking at and having a timeline and where we're at on the current one, looking at for the future.
Yeah, we would anticipate being finished with the projects when the new school's open.
And the other question I had was, I'm just curious, did all of the items under the assessment report, project recommendations, that assessment report that was done prior to looking at all the other buildings, were they prioritized?
So we prioritized that assessment. Basically went from priority 0, which said kind of needed to be done yesterday, to maybe like priority 4 and priority 5. We prioritized those immediate, priority 0, priority 1s, and the things that needed to be either done right now or within the next couple of years. So as one of the things that we will be updating that assessment as a part of this process. And we will be, there's going to be a lot of those items that might have been priority 2s, 3s, and 4s that will be now priority 1s. So yeah, there will be an ongoing, especially in the district, as we continue to grow, build more facilities. You know, as we look at these things every 3 or so years, some of those items that were just below the cut line last round will be priority 1s when we look at them again, and there'll be new items that start to tick up on that list as well.
I think that if you weren't available and participating in those long-range facility meetings last year, they are online. If you want to go back and see the content that was discussed, I encourage you to do that. And we have had the facility assessment report online as well, so you can see the link, you know, the amount of recommendations that were needed versus what was able to be parked on. So those are just two informational that will be helpful for you as you go forward.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I had that in my notes to say like 3 different times, which is all of that, the 2018-19 is on the district's website. It's on the homepage under quick links, long-range facility planning, and then there is a link there to all 3 of the meeting agendas, all the meeting resources, and then the meeting videos are all there on that one page. So thank you for reminding me of that.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. Once again, my name is Scott Gillette, Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations. And I first want to say thank you for all of you for being here. I know it's a commitment, whether you're a community member, you're a parent, you're both, you're a staff member, you're all 3, you know, whatever it is. We appreciate you being here. This work can't be done without you, and it can't be done in the way that we want to move forward. And so, you know, I also want to just say thank you for the introduction. I enjoyed hearing people's thoughts and comments, and it's always a positive to hear so much good feedback, so I appreciate that. I'm going to cover just briefly some of our demographic data. Obviously, if you were here on the last committee meetings, you've seen this, and you may have looked at it on our website, and you may have seen it in other places. We're not going to spend a lot of time, and I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't really already know. I mean, you can look around, you can be on 290, you know Dripping Springs is growing, and our demographic data proves that out. And so when we look at just a few of the slides that have been provided by PASA, that's our demographer, you can see, and this is from a 5-year period from the fall of 2012 to the fall of 2017. So our last update with them was in March of this year, 2019. And so we're using the slides from that presentation. So you can see here, 5% over that 5-year period, we were the 5th fastest growing district in the Central Texas area. Now, when you look at the 4 above us, they're all smaller, and some of them are considerably smaller. And so 30% growth is not a lot of students for them to get a lot of growth. And so, you know, Dripping Springs is growing, and I think what we're going to see here in some of these slides that come is the growing is projected to increase the growth rates. And so while it's already been a fast growth rate, what's coming is projected to be even faster. So, but yeah, you can see we're at 34.9% over a 5-year period. Probably averages, you know, about 6 to 7% per year in those 5 years. So just looking at the annual growth rates, this is historical, and you can see 2007, 2008, during those periods, we're at 2 to 3 to 4%, Dripping Springs ISD. But you can see there about 2013, it took a strong upturn, and those percentages went to about 6 plus. You had 1 year 3.7, but then 7%, 7.4, 6.6. And so when you have those same type percentages year after year, you're doing that on a larger number. And so your number of students that are increasing become a higher number. And so that becomes more pressure in your facilities. So fall enrollment, you can see at the end of 2018-19, this would have been the last day of school in May, 6,862 students. And then where we were just over a month ago, end of September, 7,208. Now PASA projected that we would be around 7,300 students. This very likely that we'll be really close to that by the end of the year. Generally what they're projecting is where we'll be at the end of the year. And Dripping Springs because it's a growing community, we will tend to grow during the school year. So our enrollment will probably increase as the year goes on. And so we'll probably end up pretty close to what their projections are. So whenever we're doing staffing, whenever we're looking at anything, we're kind of having to project where we'll be really toward the end of the year. It's hard, if we only project where we are at the beginning of the year, then a lot of times we put ourselves in a difficult situation, and we try not to do that. We're trying to balance, when do you add staff, when do you provide, same thing with facilities. But you can see there we've grown a little bit over 300 since the beginning of summer students, and it's just a pattern that's going to continue. So lots one thing they do is they give you 3 scenarios of growth. They give you kind of a low growth, a moderate growth, and a kind of aggressive growth. But we work with the moderate. That's where they project and they try to show where they think you'll be, knowing that there's so many variables that can change that. And so right now, once again, we're at 7,200. You can see by the year 2023 in a moderate growth, the projection will be roughly at 9,500, almost 9,500. So all of a sudden you're looking at 2,300 student growth in the next 4 years. And when you think about that, and we'll talk about this one a little bit, elementary capacity, 800 students, 850 students, you start getting to the point where you're saying, we're adding 4, 5, 6, 700 students per year, and you start getting close to where you're adding basically an elementary campus size growth per year. And you can see, you'll see in a later slide how that affects it. But you can see about 10 years, last 9 years, looking at 13,000. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge for a community. How do you build facilities and afford the facilities and provide for the students that you're going to have coming in? And how do you stay ahead of that curve? So here's a slide that shows the projections for the next 10 years. And once again, you can see the percentages there. Then when you see the growth numbers at the bottom, so the blue, they're projecting about 6% per year, 6.5%, all 7. When you get to the bottom row, 2024 on, all of a sudden it jumps up to 7% and almost 8%, and then it settles back down to 6% ranges. But when you look at the actual numbers of new students, projected growth of 431 in 2019, but roughly the same percentage, because you have so many more students in 2028, 810 new students that year. And so, once again, if you're bringing in 810 new students, that's an elementary campus per year. Now, granted, not all those students are going to be elementary students, but it's just kind of an illustrative point. We're going to get to a point where, keeping up with facilities is going to be this constant kind of construction period and trying to make sure that we provide the needs of our students. And so, that's a challenge. Dripping Springs is 198 square miles, so there's a lot of land, there's a lot of place for a lot more growth in neighborhoods, and so this growth is projected for at least probably the next 20 years. This one may be kind of hard to read from where you are, but this is the slide that PASA provides, and it basically shows the capacity of each campus over here on the left, and then it shows what the current enrollment was, and then on out what they project enrollment to be for each campus. And so our elementary campus capacities are generally at 850, Dripping Springs Elementary is a little bit bigger, 900. Then you've got your middle school capacity, the Dripping Springs Middle School is 1,200 capacity, Sycamore is currently at 800, and then the high school is currently at 1,850. Well, when it gets to the yellow part, and where that's when that campus, what they're projecting, and like I said, several of you already heard all this, but that is where we're going to be over 120% capacity at that campus. And so at 100%, that's already a lot. When you get to 120%, you're really straining the facilities and the ability to provide the education that you want to provide for those students. And so if you look at the first one that's going to turn yellow is obviously the high school here next year. So the high school right now is right at 120%, and they're made to do, but we have that construction going on with the 2018 bond, and so that will open in the fall, and then that yellow bar will be pushed back some because the new capacity will be about 2,500 students. So the high school will go from 1,850 to 2,500. But you can even see then that within a short period of time, the high school is going to have pressure again because they're going to have 2,500 student capacity, but by 2023, we're probably going to be past that. The next one in 2021, Sycamore Springs Elementary, they're at 1,067. They're going to go past 120%. Fortunately, that year, elementary number 5 is going to open. They're in Dark Hill, and that will push that back some, for all these schools. So it's kind of this game where you build and it pushes those yellow bars back a little bit, and then you buy some time, obviously, for that continued growth. So it's a challenge, but that's what this committee is going to be tasked and charged with looking into this and figuring out how we move forward. Last thing, I think this is the last slide. As PASA, and I've been in communication with them quite a bit in the last month, there's so many variables that go into this. And they don't ever try to say we're right in what we're saying. They look at all the conditions and they try to get the best estimate. And they know, like anybody, they're going to be a lot closer the first couple of years, and then it's going to be a lot more difficult as years go on. Not knowing how developers are going to come in or how the economy is going to be. Those are challenges, but I think what's important to know is here at the bottom, they're talking about build out. And I think the number for build out, they're talking roughly 20 years from now. Build out meaning that all homes that can essentially be built in the district are built, and so we'll know roughly how many students we'll have. And they're saying roughly 24,000 students in Dripping Springs ISD. And talking to them on the phone and verifying and make sure that what I say here is consistent with what they would say, is that a rough number? Could be higher, could be lower, it could be much higher, it could be, I don't think it'd be much lower, I don't think they said that, but I think when you're doing the work and we have to know that these are projections, but these are 20-year projections, and knowing how many things can change between now and then is how do we think about that big picture, because like Dr. Wellman talks about, she'll probably talk about it here in a little bit, the decisions that this committee is making is not making for the next 3 to 5 years. That may be the actual facility, but the decision you're making affects students for the next 50 to 75 years. So how we design that, how we think about the process is really important. So just want to go through that. And that is all I have. Now, if you have just a question or two, if you have an answer, otherwise I'll turn it back over to Dr. Wellman. Yes, sir.
The previous slide, do you have an updated version? Because I can see that being really helpful with, now that this is all in the process and all in the works and approved through the bond, that what it looks like with the 5th elementary school, what it looks like with the high school at 2,500.
We can get, I think we have that, and it's probably actually already on the website. And all the slides, once again, are on the website, and I would have to find out. But yeah, I do believe they do some projections to show, because it won't just affect Sycamore Springs, it will affect other campuses as well. And so, no, that's a challenge. And just, one thing that's interesting is even in 1920, you got Dripping Springs Elementary that's listed at 819 students, but they're actually a little over 900. They're like 903, so they had a huge growth, and Walnut Springs is actually in the mid to low 700s. And so even with the projections, it's very challenging even in the short term to be exactly accurate, and so that battle that every district faces. So, but no, that's good questions, and we will definitely try to provide. Yes, sir.
I'm Mark McConaughey. My word would be optimistic that we can build on Dripping Springs' records of success and move forward to bigger and better things in the future. But to the last slide, I had a question. I feel like Dripping Springs' long-term planning has been a lot of like stopgap measures moving forward. Oh, we need to build a school, let's build one. And when you look at the Path 2 long-term facilities plan that was 2017, 2018, when you look at those numbers on that last slide, it doesn't jive. I mean, we built a third of the schools that the district's going to need in the next 20 years, basically, according to PASS. So I want to make sure that we have that long-term vision to make sure that what we're doing now is cost-effective and not going to cost us more in the long run by having to expand buildings or make other changes that are more expensive and less prudent and less conducive to teachers teaching and administrators running schools, because they're juggling construction and all these other things that really, if we had a further long-term perspective, we'd be able to kind of mitigate on the front end.
No, that's a good point, and I hope we do think in that long-term perspective. So I agree with you, and like I said, it's an important process here, and like Dr. Whitman said, y'all committed a lot of your future time to it. We appreciate that, and hopefully we'll continue our do, but I want to turn it back over to Dr. Whitman at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Gillette. Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. There are a lot of challenges facing you. Somebody used that in their word, and I think that it's facing that, the strength of this community as you work together. So I think that's what's beneficial. If you will look in your packet now, in your packet, I have provided you with a charge. And I think what we want to remember is we are looking at education of the future. And just like education when I went to school, or even when you went to school, is changed, it will so change in the future. And so you have to think about that futuristic look and what you might want rather than what we had that makes us feel comfortable, because that's the way school was for us. It's thinking about it, and the biggest change that we all know is the role of technology. But in our world, the social emotional learning and the relationships and many other things have a huge impact on what facilities have. For example, if you look at the forward thinking of Sycamore Springs Elementary, for sure, you have those areas of gathering. Though that gathering is so that kids can work together, so you have teams. So when you think about the schools of yesteryear and the schools of the future, what is it that we want students to be able to do, and how do we create spaces for that to encourage them, to inspire them, and to equip them to be able to do those things? So when you look at this committee charge, and I don't really like reading to you, but I do think it's important that you look at this. This committee is advisory. The board has the sole authority to make these decisions. I know they value what you say, but they have that sole authority. And they have the important, you have this task of developing these long-range facility recommendations that you can share with them to meet the needs of this fast growth district. That 50 to 75 years is not unrealistic. You can have a facility, in fact, the administration is sitting in one right now that's 50 to 75 years old. These facilities you want to build for a lasting use in the community. The consideration will be on the new campuses, recommended classroom additions, other support services, other ancillary spaces, and land needs that may accommodate future facilities. Also would like for us to be able to consider renovations and improvement as we look at our current facilities and where they're needed, and also the infrastructure. Another major change in facilities that's happened in the last 20 years is safety and security. We know the costs associated with that are into what happens in a facility. All of us want our students and our staff to be safe when they come to school. Your ultimate goal is to reach a consensus regarding those recommendations, and later in the spring make those recommendations to the Board of Trustees on a facility needs for 5 years out. Now that's a pretty short horizon. But in making those 5 years out, you really need to think about 10 or 15 years. But just like projections get fuzzier the farther out you get, these recommendations will too. The expected results are listed there. It's redundant, but it's basically the high school needs, the recommendations for expected middle school needs, elementary school needs, technology needs, administration support facility needs, the current facilities, and future land needs. All of these are results of what this committee will do over the next few meetings.
What you will need to do is investigate best practices for the school facilities for future needs, and we will have an opportunity to talk about some of those. You'll use the demographic, the facility assessment, which we are going to update, the capacity assessment, the curricular and other information that we provide for you from the district or that we can gather from other sources. You will not make specific location recommendations for facilities, but certainly areas where you see, boy, do we need another facility in this area of the district. Again, a reminder, it is an advisory committee to the board. Questions about the charge? Comments about the charge? Yes.
So there's no, I guess, charge of discussing or taking into consideration overall cost and projections of costs to taxpayers in the next 20 to 25 years as well?
We'll do not in that long a term because it's
the next 5
years.
years.
In the recommendations after, and I'll share with you, after the in the timeline I'll share with you, after the long range makes their recommendations, then ultimately a spin-off bond steering committee will come out, and that's where the cost looks at, and then that bond steering committee will put together the package of what would be recommended for the next bond. So it's a second tier kind of process, not in this one. The last bullet on this slide is third-party consultation. One of the things that happens in larger districts is this process is often done internally. You have lots of staff and you have lots of internal administration to do that. In some cases, you have, and this happens frequently in school districts, you have architectural firms who have developed expertise and have people on their staff to help with developing your long-term facility needs and helping the district put together the next bond package, so to speak, and recommendation to the board. In our case, we are looking at a third-party consultant to do that, to help through this leadership transition and actually help put together some of those educational trends. They have a lot of research already put together, and to help with this process over the next 6 months that we have. So I want to share with you, we have not yet done that final contract, but I wanted to share with you that we're looking at additional help in this process. Yes?
Is that with Corgan?
No, Corgan is an architect.
I understand that, but they hired a PR person specifically for our district to help push the next bond.
Well, I'll correct your statement. Corgan had helped with the 2018 bond, and in that 2018 bond, one of the things they did not have is a very effective communications process. And we recommended that part of what they needed to do, not for us, but for themselves, was a communication person. They did do that. They took our recommendation because we felt like it was important. That being said, we have determined that we would rather have a third-party consultant than an architect help us lead through this. So that's why we're looking at a third party rather than having an architect.
So we are going to bid out again?
No, we won't. Oh, you mean an architect?
Yes.
Possibly. We would do that anyway. You would do that anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, that would be a normal.
Based on the memos I saw from Bruce Gearing, that wasn't very clear.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, you would, at a new bond program, you would bid out for a new architect. In fact, in a lot of districts, they have multiple architects doing different projects. That's pretty common.
I was going to ask, so for this third-party consultant, what exactly is their scope, and do we have like an agenda for future meetings? In particular, I'm interested, I asked at the May meeting for more information about kind of Dripping Springs' current high school plan and how they foresee it moving forward? As we're discussing 1, 2, or 3 high schools, would that be their scope?
They'll help us work through all of those decisions that need to be made here. Under the expected results, they'll do that, yes.
The other thing I really wanted to make sure was discussed is 9th grade centers, because by my math, a 9th grade center could potentially save us a 3rd high school, and that's like $100 million savings in taxpayers.
And one of the
So I wanna make sure
reasons that we
understand the
want them
benefits.
to help us is they have a lot of the national research on that. So that's one of the reasons we're doing that. Ms. O'Connor, I'm sorry I had not introduced you. Our another board member, Shannon O'Connor, would you raise your hand? Process and timeline, just so you know what you've gotten yourself into. Between now and the end of the school year, you will meet with this charge and these expected results. In April, a bond steering committee is expected to be formed. Recognize all of these timelines can change, but today, this is the anticipated process and timeline. In May through the next fall, the bond steering committee will begin to work to look at that demographic report. When will we need buildings to come online? What is the bonding capacity of the school district? All those things will be talked about in that bond steering committee from May through the fall. And sometime in the winter next year, those steering committee recommendations would come to the board. And the board then would look at when they are interested and feel like a bond election would need to be called. That could happen, and as the caveat, and I should have put an asterisk here, the board could decide to call a bond issue next November and all of this timeline gets accelerated. Or they can decide to go as late as 2022, and we'll be looking at classrooms that are in portables and things like that. School districts do all of those things from both ends of the spectrum. But sometime in the next 24 months, our board will be considering a bond election for those facilities that are over 120% capacity.
In terms of the bond steering committee being postponed until the spring, as you know, community members have been asking for this to be formed for well over a year now. And when we're in such a time crunch.
This is the steering committee for a bond, not the bond advisory committee.
Okay, a
These
bond.
are- yeah.
So y'all are going to have a bond advisory committee?
That oversees
And
the
a
two.
bond steering committee?
They're two different things with two different tasks. The bond advisory committee is to oversee the bond of 2018 that's already been passed, all the expenditures, the change orders, all of that. This is for a future bond. The bond steering committee is to take the recommendations of this committee and look at future facility needs and create a bond package.
Okay. So the
Totally
BAC
different.
Interesting. So is the BAC formed yet, or?
We just passed the procedures and now we'll go into the membership. That's two different things.
And then they'll meet, when is the bond advisory committee going to start meeting?
As soon as the members are selected, we'll start meeting. But they haven't been, the membership hasn't been selected. That is an arm of the board as well. And as soon as they select members, then we'll start meeting. That's different than this. This is the bond steering committee for a future bond. And maybe I should have put on there future bond steering committee, but this is for a future bond, not the 2018. Okay, I want to talk just a minute about how you got here, and I mentioned earlier that we had spent some extra time this fall forming the committee so that we would have these structures in place, and Mr. Gillette spent many hours putting this committee together, and so I'll let him explain that.
All right, thank you. So this was a challenge. So we took, looking where we started meeting, talking about this long-range facility planning committee, our challenge was that the committee started last November, and there were meetings in November, and there were meetings in February, and then there was a meeting in May. And so trying to find, at that time, you had a different superintendent, a different assistant superintendent for finance and operations, and a different assistant superintendent for learning and innovation. So I have to think of what the terms are. I'm new enough that I don't know all the titles. So here we are today, and I know the intention was to have our first long-range facilities planning committee meeting in September, but that's right when Dr. Gearing was leaving. And so we started looking back and trying to find old information. We said, we know we need to have meetings and start getting those scheduled, but we felt like we needed to bring more structure. It was a very loosely structured committee in the sense that anybody who wanted to come to the meetings were allowed to be on the committee. And so what we want to do is make sure that we had a committee that was defined, that would be meeting consistently, and that would, as future meetings progress, are working together and creating recommendations. And so to take a committee that was very loosely structured and to try to bring structure was a challenge. And so the first thing we did was try to find out who all attended the meetings in the spring. And those people who attended the meetings were essentially on the committee. We wanted to honor those people and make sure that they had the right to be and serve on the committee again. Our original goal was to have 40 or 50 members on the committee. Well, there was 59 community members alone that we could find that had attended at least one of those meetings last fall or spring. And so the letter went out to those committee members and basically, laid out the plan for this committee, and several of you obviously got that. Of the 59 letters that we sent out, 27 members, re-upped and said they wanted to continue their service. At the same time, we opened up the committee to anybody who hadn't been a part of it, and if they wanted to fill out their application and show interest. And we had 51 people apply for that. So what we did with those 51 people who applied is we looked at kind of the range of people across the district. We want to make sure that all the campuses were represented. We want to make sure all the neighborhoods as best we could, the different areas of the district, to make sure that when we got met here as a committee, there was broad representation across the entire district. And so we tried to fill in those gaps, and we selected an additional 12 members. And so the final number was 39 community members, mostly parents, but a lot of them who had kids who graduated or, possibly never have had any students in the school, kids in the school. Then at the same time, we asked the staff, the principals to pick 2 from each campus for the elementaries and the middle school, 2 staff members, and then 5 in the high school, and then some administration. So we had 24 school personnel, and so the 24 plus the 39, we have a full roster of 63 members who are on the committee. A little bit larger than what we wanted to have, but we felt like that was the best we could do. It's a working amount, and we can make it work and be successful with it. One important note, and Dr. Wellman has touched on this, any principal that's on the committee or campus, they're a voting member. Central office staff, directors, we are not voting members. We're consultants to the committee. We do not vote. So pretty much all the group over here is here as a resource, just like when Cindy got up a little bit ago, she's the director of technology. She's able to provide information, but she won't get a vote. I won't get a vote. Dr. Wellman won't be here for a vote. But Mr. Washington won't get a vote. So anyway, that is how we got to where we are today. It's a challenge. If for some reason we miss somebody that was on the committee in the fall or spring and they want to serve, then they'll have that opportunity to serve. If we miss somebody and didn't send out a letter to them, it was unintentional. It's just, we did the best we could trying to figure out who was here. So I think that covers everything. I'll be happy to answer a question or two, or if anybody has anything.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Ms. Whitaker, our Director of Communications, to come forward and just talk about the opportunity for community information, which we mentioned earlier, but also input into the process through the spring.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Dale Whitaker. I'm in my 10th year as the Communications Director here in Dripping Springs ISD, and I'm also a 20-year resident and a parent. I have an 11th grader here. Also, I'd like to introduce Ellen Bregman, who is our communication specialist. The guy behind the camera is the other member of my staff. I wanted to just mention that, of course, we have all of you, the committee members, we have an email list that Mr. Goulet's office will keep everyone informed about meetings and things like that. But we also want to make sure we have a number of tools that we use to keep the community updated, which we started to do last year in a very comprehensive way and will continue. We have a web page that is listed there. It's also a quick link on the home page of dsisdtx.us. We will keep any presentation that's given here, we will link. We will put the agendas there for meetings. We, today or yesterday, split out last year's 2018-19 meetings, which are there now along with a number of links. We pulled that and we started a new page for the 1920 process so they weren't intermingled and it would be easier to locate things. As we move forward, we'll let people know about our progress through parent emails, social media, updates to local newspapers, and of course the website will be a key way of doing that. I also wanted to point out that we will video these meetings and post these with the link from that page. They're on YouTube. Last year, Alan also started doing something that was really helpful. He kind of did an abbreviated table of contents that you can see when you're on the YouTube. So if you don't want to listen to 2 hours, but you want to do something again, or you want to share it with somebody, you can find it and do that. So hopefully you'll find that. And we got really good feedback when we did that after the high school model discussion here last spring. In addition to the ways that we are committed to keeping everyone informed of the progress in our facility planning process, I also wanted to mention a couple of tools. If as a committee, you all see the need to get broader input to help you in decision making, we of course can do a Google form at any time. We've used that as a simple tool for things like the design feedback. We used that last spring. The drawback of Google Forms is you have you can download the responses you got, but they're not organized in a meaningful way. It's just a lot of responses. But certainly we can gather information from the broader community on any topic that you feel a need as a committee for. The other tool we have available to us is new. We have something called Thought Exchange that we have brought on board for district use. It's kind of hard to explain. It's almost a combination of an online survey tool with also the ability to comment or to rate other people's comments, sort of like you would in social media. So what you would do is you can put out a question, an open-ended question. The drawback is you really can only do one at a time, and you run an exchange on that. An example of what an open-ended question might be like, it would be what would be a few of your top priorities when determining features that an elementary school should have, or something along those lines. And you put in your own responses, and then it also prompts you to rate other people's responses on a scale of 1 to 5. So you can show what responses are favorable to you that you agree with personally, and which ones you disagree with. What this does, this thought exchange kind of develops a report, an evaluative way of looking at things where it creates common ground, areas of common ground, and then it also shows areas of disagreement. But you can kind of see what bubbles up to the top is having received really high responses on a broader scale. I bring that to your attention for 2 purposes. One is that if there's ever, that can be used as a real-time tool in a meeting, for instance. So if this group ever wanted to, then maybe it takes about 10 minutes because you have to rate other people's responses, but amongst yourselves, we could run an exchange for 10 to 15 minutes during a meeting. And then it also can be used on a broader scale. So if there's something that you're working toward a decision on, and you would like broader community input while you're doing that, you can run an exchange for instance, a week or for 5 days. And we can push that out to members of our community saying, please log in. It can be done on a smartphone or on a PC. And you can, again, rate people's responses. And then it provides a pretty good report. It isn't just a collection of answers. It starts moving things into what's the most popular, desirable responses. And I think it might be something that would be helpful to you as we move forward with this process. So we're here to support, our communications team is here to support this committee and support this process. So if those tools are something we want to implement, we will make it happen.
week before the meetings. I know it's not all you, the comms department's responsibility, but if the sooner it's posted, the more the community can kind of have discussions. And
We'll see what we can do. This time we were developing it this week, and so we didn't have it out early, but in the future, I think that's a possibility. Any other comments? Okay, the next one is a group participation. And I've asked Ms. Ray, principal at Sycamore Springs Elementary School, but Ms. Ray is also doing a superintendent practicum this fall, and that means she gets to do whatever I ask her to do in terms of work, so she can get her hours toward her PhD. So appreciate you taking the time on top of working full-time running a school. But this part of it is to help you decide how you want to work together as a group and what norms, what collective commitments you will make to each other to help pull you together. And I don't know anyone better at facilitating this than Ms. Ray. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Wellman. Again, good evening. I'm Kristen Ram, principal at Sycamore Springs Elementary. My AP's right here, so she's my support system. I'm super thankful to be here this evening because I truly believe in this. Like Dr. Wellman articulated earlier, the charge of this committee is vast, and the cadence of the next 8 meetings, in order for us to ensure that we're functioning at a highly successful and effective level, we need to be working collectively as a group. And so we wanted to start off by sharing this quote with you. At the heart of team interaction lies the commitment building process. The team establishes a social contract amongst its members that relates to their purpose and guides and obligates how they must work together. At its core, team accountability is about the promises that underpin 2 critical aspects of teams: commitment and trust. So what are norms and what are collective commitments? And I think as a group, it's important for us to be able to delineate between the two. Norms are defined as standards or patterns of behavior that are typical and expected of a group. Collective commitments, however, are defined as statements that represent our values and behaviors that are aligned to the mission and vision of the organization, just as Dr. Woolman started our meeting off with this evening. Norms and collective commitments, what do they do for us as a group? They raise the level of effectiveness of what we do. They produce a positive experience for us. They hold each other accountable, and we define commitments together for mutual accountability to occur. So this is the task that we charge you with right now. You have a copy piece of paper on your table, so I'd like you to grab a pen and I'd like you to choose someone at your table to scribe. The charge of your table is this. As a group, you are to agree on one norm and one collective commitment that you feel you need in order for this group to work effectively in this space. Please be prepared to share out with the entire group. So I'm going to go back a slide so you can see those working definitions of the two. Again, your charge as a group is to define one norm and one collective commitment that you can agree on, that you need, or you feel we need as a group to work effectively in this space. We're going to give you a few minutes here. Go ahead and grab your copy paper and then be prepared to share out.
Paper in.
All right, group, I'm going to ask you to close your last great thought. So just to recap your charges and table group, you were asked to identify one norm, one collective commitment. And so everyone give it up for Cindy Wade. She's typing. Right? So she is going to be typing. If she hears a common theme, she is going to omit that. Doesn't mean that your voices are going to be heard. If we need to retweak or wordsmith something, I just want you to raise your hand and let us know. Okay, and Nola's going to help me with this process. We'll start over here.
So
share your one norm.
Microphone, that's easier. The norm we picked was transparency, ensuring that everything is open and above board on this committee. And the collective commitment is using taxpayers' dollars efficiently and effectively. That's what we selected.
Just going to start with the norm. Thank you so much. Dustin?
Our norm is consensus building.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Okay, our norm is do your homework. That means be present, be prepared, and our collective commitment is all means all. That means we're representing all the kids, we're representing all the taxpayers.
One norm, just your norm.
All right, our norm was respectful of others.
Our norm was to be respectfully open-minded and flexible.
Our norm was to promote respectful discourse through active listening.
So Cindy, I heard two key words there, discourse, and two others, active listening.
Our norm?
Consistent and punctual attendance of the meetings.
Consistent and punctual attendance. That's okay. Glad to restate. Mr. Deal?
Honor everyone's time. Start on time and end on time.
Thank you. Is yours up there? Okay. Mr. Pruitt, something different? You are non-voting members. Natalie?
Respect all members and the process.
There was one, somebody said all means all. Did we get that on the previous page? Okay, we did, and I think that, just to clarify that one, Cindy, he said all students, all community members, all taxpayers. So that it was, thank you, I thought that was important.
All right, we're going to do one more round around the room, and this time I'd like for you to identify one more time your collective commitments.
Yes, ma'am. Our collective commitment is use tax dollars efficiently and effectively.
Thank you. Ms. Table?
Act in a thorough, directed, and respectful open dialogue.
We will be willing to learn and be open to new ideas in order to model lifelong learning behavior.
We could hand it to you.
Yeah, that's pretty long. Willingness to learn, open to new ideas, and model lifelong learning behavior. Carrie? We will remain student-focused.
Exhibit fiscal responsibility through the use of data measures to guide the growth of our district facilities to meet long-term needs.
I think I'm going to shorten that, Ms. Booker, to say let's use our data to guide the growth needs of the district. Okay. Let's be data-driven. Are you good with that? Okay. Mallory? All means all.
Keeping students and staff needs to the forefront while considering the impact of the community.
Thank you. Mr. Deal?
We have a student focused also, keeping student needs at the center of decision making.
Cindy, do you need a repeat? Is that?
Keep student needs at the center of decision making.
Thank you so much. If you'll look at somebody at your table and tell them thank you. All right. All righty, before I turn it over to Dr. Wildman, I want us to go ahead and move to the next slide. So an important part is that transparency that Dale shared with you in regards to the agenda. So there will be an evolving agenda, and the close of each agenda will possess actionable next steps. And so Dr. Waldman's going to go over that piece.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. I appreciate it a whole lot. Give her a round of applause. But really, the person that needs the round of applause is Ms. Ray. Great job. As we talk and get to the end of our agendas, I want us to think about what it is. Do you like that I have two microphones?
That's powerful.
Actionable next steps. What are the things that we need to do between this meeting and the next one? That's December 12th. This is one that I heard that I would like to put on our, you have a slide afterwards too, please. These would be concrete, they would be specific for follow-up to this meeting. They would really identify who's going to accomplish those tasks. If we said we would do something, you said we thought you would do something, we'll make sure that's listed on our next steps. It will be derived from what we talk about in this meeting. And the last one is it's pretty attainable. It's something that keeps it in your mind, keeps you thinking about this process, but it's not difficult, overly burdensome to do. I have two that I would like to bring up, and then I'd like for you to add to it. As I read through the committee charge and the expected results, earlier I talked about the safety of students, both physical safety related to facilities and emotional and safety, relationship safety. So I think we should add something in expected results that said we would look at the safety needs in the facility. And so I'm going to take that on as something to add to our charge is reviewing safety in our district. And so I would add that as an actionable step for me and us before the next meeting and bring that back to you. The second one that I think is important is something for you. Those of you who were not at last year's meetings, please spend some time on the website. I listened to all of those meetings, everyone, all of the video from last year. It's very helpful to really get in your head what the challenges are and what you'll be deciding. It just helps reinforce all of that. Look at the resources. Dr. Gearing and the staff last year put some great resources together about high school models. And so I would say to you, especially if you were not in the meetings, if you were, it won't take nearly as much time just to review that. But if you weren't, please spend some time looking at the resources that are there. So those are two actionable next steps. Would you like to add something to that? I actually have a third one. That is that we will take the norms and collective commitments, kind of maybe, we had some duplicates, maybe put those together, synthesize those, and bring those back in a really smooth list. Yes?
I'd like to see a new long-term facilities plan, whether that's the district, come up with what you all think it should look like as a recommendation. But like I said, path 2 that was late 2017, early 2018 doesn't work with it to pass up.
I don't know if that meets all of our criteria for the next, but that certainly is what the result of this process is. Right. This isn't to do next steps just for next meeting. And so I do think there are some things that with the plans that we have for this meeting, out of that, you're going to get a long-term facilities plan. You're going to get a master plan. And I know that's what you're wanting. Yeah. So, master plan over 6 months. Any other actionable steps? Yes.
We looked at earlier the sort of spreadsheet with the attendance, projected attendance, actual attendance, projected attendance by facility. Can we get that updated from staff that shows,
with elementary 5 and with, okay.
give you the information from the demographic report that includes the buildings that are due to come online.
Right.
Okay, perfect. That's a great start.
I had a question. I remember in May, there was a lot of discussion about that specific graph, capacities being incorrect. I think Dripping Springs Elementary is actually 1,100, not 900. I think Sycamore Springs Middle School is 850, not 800. There were a couple numbers that weren't correct there, if I recall.
Yeah, Sycamore Springs is one of them. I think both the May report and this report are from the same March of 19th demographic report. And they don't have those estimated exactly right, so we just pulled that chart off. But we can update that chart for you. First, again, thank you. Thanks for letting us kind of set this foundation meeting so that we can begin rolling up our sleeves and really getting into some deep discussions at the next meetings. Thank you again, Ms. Wade. I appreciate you doing this. And we need to move the slide forward. Can we do that? Next. You have in your packet a half sheet of paper that would really help us. It's another next step that we will bring back what you say to us. But we would like to know what you say needs to happen in this long-range facility process, planning process, for you to feel that it has been successful. And secondly, what is the greatest challenge facing the school district regarding facility planning? If you would put your thoughts on that and then hand those to Ms. Whitaker as we're walking out the door, I certainly appreciate your time this evening, and we'll get to work on this. Got a lot of work to do. Thank you so much.